الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه كما يحب ربنا ويرضى. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله الناصح الأمين. اللهم صل على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين. ثم أما بعد. Alhamdulillah, we continue going over the tremendous book by the Imam bin Baz rahimahullah ta'ala. That book, which is entitled دروس مهمة لعامة الأمة, important lessons, الدروس المهمة لعامة الأمة, the important lessons for the general body of the ummah, for the general body of the ummah. This book is of extreme importance, and bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, I encourage everyone to take it extremely serious. To take it very, very, very serious, and to not only follow along and to study the information that is contained therein, but also to add an element of memorization. That we memorize those surah that are contained, and that the Imam rahimahullah ta'ala, he suggests and recommends that we memorize, and that we memorize vital pieces of information that are contained in this book, so that our knowledge will be with us wherever we may go. Now, as the poet, he mentions, and is attributed to Imam Shafi'i, these lines where he says, "Ilmi ma'i," my knowledge is with me. "Aynama tawajjahtu yanfa'uni," wherever I turn to, it benefits me. That my knowledge is with me, wherever I turn to, it benefits me. "Qalbi wi'a'un lahu la batlun suduqi." He said, because my heart is the vessel that stores my knowledge, and not the insides of books. Because my heart is the vessel that stores my knowledge, and not the innermost portions of the books or the inside of books. نعم. فإن كنت في بيت فعلمي معي في البيت. And if I'm in the house, then my knowledge is with me in the house. وَإِذَا كُنْتُ فِي السُّوقِ فَعِلْمِي فِي السُّوقِ. And if I'm in the marketplace, then my knowledge is inside of the marketplace. Now, if I'm in the marketplace, then my knowledge is in the marketplace. Al-Muhim is that by way of memorizing, it will help us to understand. Because not only when we have the knowledge with us wherever we at, but it will allow us and allot us the opportunity to reflect upon it, and to ponder upon it, and to deeply concentrate and reflect over it, because we have it memorized. We have it memorized with us. So this is something that is very important, and there are some more suggestions that I have as relates to this, but inshallah ta'ala I will leave them for now into a time where it's more suitable that they be mentioned. Imam bin Baz rahimahullah ta'ala, he starts by saying, الدرس الأول, the first lesson, Surah Al-Fatiha, وقصار السور that the first lesson is on Surah Al-Fatiha and of some small chapters. Some small chapters. Naam. The Shaykh, he says, Surah Al-Fatiha, Surah Al-Fatiha, وَمَا أَمْكَنَ مِنْ قِصَارِ الصُّوَرِ. Surah Al-Fatiha, of course we know every Muslim has to memorize Surah Al-Fatiha. And that which a person has the ability, or that which is possible from the small chapters. From the small chapters. And the Imam, he doesn't leave it vague like that, but he intends and he specifies, as he has recommended, certain chapters. He says, Min Surah Al-Zalzala ila Surah Al-Nas. Naam. So, from Surah Al-Zalzala to memorize. From there, all the way into Surah Al-Nas. So, from there to the end of the Qur'an. At the very minimum. Naam. At the very minimum. The Imam, he says, Talqeenan. Naam. Talqeenan. And bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, we'll come to see what is the meaning of talqeen. Naam. Talqeenan. Wait. So I want you to write in your notes, talqeenan. And in Arabic it's spelled ta, lam, qaf, ya, noon. This is talqeen. Naam, talqeen. In English, you can spell it however it sounds to you. Talqeen. Naam, talqeen. So T-A-L-Q-E-E-N. Right? For those who haven't learned the Arabic letters yet, you can write it like that, so that you know talqeen. And inshallah ta'ala, very soon we will come to see what is the meaning of talqeen. Also, tasheehan للقراءة, that we recite these verses and these chapters correctly, so that we recite them correctly. Now, we recite them correctly. Pronunciation and tajweed, that the pronunciation of the letters are correct and the rules of tajweed are applied. And the rules of tajweed are applied. Now, and then the Shaykh, he says, وَتَحْفِيظًا, and that we memorize them. And that we memorize them. Now, that we memorize them. وَشَرْحًا لِمَا يَجِبُ فَهْمُهُ, and that we study their explanations with that which is a must that we understand. Naam. That we study the explanations, we study the tafsir of these chapters with that which is enough for us to understand. So the Imam is not saying that we study every aspect of the knowledge that is contained inside of these chapters. Naam. But that we just study from them what is needed and what is obligatory, that it has to be understood from the meanings of these chapters. Naam, from the meanings of these chapters. Sheikh Abdul Razak, Sheikh Abdul Muhsin Al-Abbad Al-Badr, he mentions, he says, هذا هو الدرس الأول. He said, this is the first lesson. من الدروس المهمة لعامة الأمة. This is the first lesson from those important lessons for the general Muslims. Naam. For those important lessons for the general Muslims. And that one there, how do they translate the title? It's just important lessons for the Muslims. Is that how they translate it? Important lesson for every Muslim. Naam, they put for every Muslim. طيب. لعامة الأمة. Naam. This means yani for the general masses of the ummah, for the common person from the from the ummah. Naam, which I know is hard to, make that reader friendly, right? But this is what is intended by it. Important lessons for the common folk from amongst the Muslim, or in other words, you could say for every Muslim, right? Because, of course, if the general masses of the Muslims are supposed to know these lessons, then how much more so the students of knowledge is a given. They should already know these lessons now, because this is a foundation that every Muslim should have. So that those who want to go beyond that, and go beyond that and be students of knowledge and that, then these things they are givens. They should know these things, right? They should know these things. But yeah, the Shaykh, he says, وَهُوَ تعليمهم سورة الفاتحة وقصار السور. Then this is teaching them Surah Al-Fatiha and small chapters. نعم, small chapters. ويقترح الشيخ أن يكون التعليم لقصار السور من سورة الزلزلة إلى سورة الناس. And the Shaykh, he has recommended that what's to be studied and what is to be learned are those small chapters from Surah Al-Zalzala to Surah Al-Nas. From Surah Al-Zalzala to Surah Al-Nas. So basically, from Surah Al-Zalzala to the end of the Qur'an. That at the very minimum, every Muslim should know these chapters. Shaykh Abdul Razak, حفظه الله تعالى, he says, وأن هذا القدر كاف لعوام ليؤدوا بها صلاتهم. He says, and this is sufficient for the common folk so that they're able to perform their prayer. So that they're able to perform their prayer. These chapters. فرضها ونفلها. This will be enough for them to perform their prayers, whether it is their obligatory prayers or the voluntary prayers. That if they knew these chapters, then they will have enough with them to adequately, sufficiently, easily perform their obligatory prayers and their voluntary prayers. The Shaykh, he says, بما في ذلك قيام الليل. He says, and from that which is from this is even the night prayer. Even the night prayer. Because the shaitan, he always tries to discourage the Muslims from doing righteous deeds. So he will whisper to some of the Muslims, telling them, in order to pray the night prayer, you have to know a lot of the Qur'an. You have to know large portions of the Qur'an so that you may recite and stand in recitation for a long period of time. And the shaitan, la'natullah alayh, he does this in order to discourage people from praying Qiyamul Layl. Because if a person he believes that, okay, he has to recite long chapters and long portions and long sections of the Qur'an in order to pray the night prayer, but he has only, or she has only memorized small chapters and so on and so forth, then they're going to feel as if their knowledge level is inadequate for the establishment of the night prayer. And this is the furthest thing from the truth. You understand? Even if a person were just to memorize from Surah Al-Zalzala to Surah Al-Nas, he will have enough with them, or she will have enough with her to what? To establish the night prayer. To establish the night prayer. The Shaykh, he says, حتى ولو كرر سورة الواحدة مقتصرا عليها في قيام أو في قيامه من الليل. He said even if they were just to suffice themselves with the recitation of just one chapter, na'am, inside of the night prayer. So meaning that what? They would just repeat one chapter. Na'am. And you find that this was the methodology, this was the way of the Salaf. Na'am. Because one of the benefits and one of the goals and objectives of praying the night prayer is to contemplate on what you're reciting. That's from the objectives and goals of the night prayer is to contemplate on that which you're reciting. Now, and with this being the case now, you see the importance of repeating chapters or repeating verses over and over and over, because by way in which you're able to reflect. Now, and this is from the ways in which the salah will have an effect upon an individual. Now in general, bila shakku bila rayb, just reflecting on what's being recited, this is what's going to bring positive effect upon an individual from his prayer, no doubt, right? But from the manner of performing the night prayer is that one verse can just be recited over and over and over and over as it comes in the Sunnah, or one chapter can just be recited over and over and over and over again in every rak'ah. They can just recite Surah Al-Fatiha, and then after Surah Al-Fatiha recite that one verse or that one chapter, and then keep repeating it, right? And they can do that in every rak'ah, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. فعن قتادة بن نعمان رضي الله عنه, on the authority of Qatada bin Nu'man رضي الله تعالى عنه قال, he said, إن رجلا قام في زمن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقرأ من السحر قل هو الله أحد ولا يزيد عليها. He said that verily there was a man in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam who recited in the night prayer, and right? And he uses the word sahar, which is the last portion of the night, and the like. He recited in the night prayer, and he just kept repeating Surah Al-Ikhlas, Qul huwa Allahu ahad, Surah Al-Ikhlas, right? He kept repeating it over and over and over and over and over again inside of his night prayer. He says, فَلَمَّا أَصْبَحْنَا, he says, so when we woke up, meaning when the morning came, right? أتى رجل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فذكر ذلك له. Then a man, he came unto the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, and he mentioned that to him. Now, talking about what he had witnessed. وكأن الرجل يتقالها, and it was as if he was mentioning it unto the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so as to imply that what this particular Sahabi did was a little bit. So as to apply that this was a little. This was a little bit. That he just recited this one small chapter all night, right? So he mentioned it, but from this standpoint, so as to imply that this was something that was a little bit. It was something a little bit. Okay. فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, so the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he said, so as to teach him and to teach the ummah, to teach all of us, that actually this is not something that was a little bit. This wasn't something that was a little bit. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, وَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ, and by the one who my soul is in his hand, إِنَّهَا لَتَعْدِلُ ثُلَثَ الْقُرْآنِ. He said, verily by the one who my soul is in his hand, he said, then verily it, meaning what? Surah Al-Ikhlas, then it equates to a third of the Qur'an. It equates to a third of the Qur'an. And this hadith, أخرجه البخاري. It has been collected by Imam al-Bukhari. So, what's muhim is that we see here this example of this man, this Sahabi, reciting in Qiyamul Layl just Surah Al-Ikhlas. Meaning what? After he recited Surah Al-Fatiha, in each rak'ah, he just recited Surah Ikhlas and he repeated it. So he recites Surah Al-Fatiha and then he recited Surah Al-Ikhlas and he just kept repeating it. He did that every rak'ah until Fajr. Until Fajr, right? And the Prophet ﷺ, he approved of this. He approved of this. So we know from the standpoint of his approval that this is from the Sunnah, right? Because the Sunnah is what the Prophet ﷺ, this is the general meaning of the Sunnah. The Sunnah is what the Prophet ﷺ is what he did, what he said, and what he allowed to be done and said in his presence. Or what he allowed to be done and said, period. Even if it was done and they informed him later, if he allowed it, then we know this is the Sunnah. He approved of it. Okay? So therefore we know it's from the Sunnah to just repeat small chapters from the Qur'an inside of the night prayer. Inside of the night prayer. And that's very, very, very important for us to know and to understand and to apply. That we apply this, inshallah ta'ala. The Shaykh, he says, وَهَذِهِ الْمِنْهَجِيَّةِ فِي التَّعْلِيمِ تُسَجِّعُ كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْأَعْوَامِ عَلَى التَّعَلُّمِ وَالْحِفْظِ. He said, and this is the methodology and teaching, and that is to encourage the common folk to learn and to memorize. To encourage them to learn and to memorize. Now, and I can't stress this enough, because how many years and how many conferences and lectures and classes and workshops and to the end of it that we have attended and been a part of, and to the end of that. But unfortunately, the takeaway, Allah musta'an, is not really what it should be in light of how many classes and things that we have been in. So I really, really, really encourage and really stress that we study, and studying means that you just don't look at the class material in class, no, but rather, when you go home, you go over it. You review it. You review it with your family. You review it with your friends. Now, this is some of the things how we should be spending time with one another, because this will help to encourage us and to encourage each other to attain knowledge. Right? It's very important. It's very important to have colleagues and study mates, people in which you study with. Now, because you will find, if you read through the biographies of the great Imams, they had this. They had colleagues, they had other mashayikh that they will study with, and so on and so forth. And this is something that is very important, because it goes for an encouragement, and it helps to solidify knowledge inside of our hearts when we constantly do reviewing of it. And sometimes, a lot of times, it's easier to review with somebody else. It's easy to review with someone else. So say, here, take the book, I'm going to recite, stop me when I make a mistake or whatever. Or you take the book, mention a line, like for example, they're memorizing a metin of something, begin a section, and I'll finish it. Start a paragraph, and I'll finish it from memory. And then stop me, go to another section, start a paragraph, and like this, jump around, so as to test the strength of the memory. You follow what I'm saying? And then you can trade off like that. Then you take the book and say, okay, now it's your turn. What part do you memorize? Let's go over your part. Say it to me straight. Say it to me straight. Okay, now I'm going to say a sentence. I want you to complete it. You say starts to complete the sentence, then you cut them off. You bring a sentence from another paragraph. And every time I bring you a few words, I want you to complete. And I'm gonna keep jumping around like this, and that strengthens the memory. And that's easy to do with two people. It's kind of hard to do with one person. But with two people, it's easy to do. So it's important that we do this. And this is. It's not something that's restricted to a scholastic setting, but look, this can be at a barbecue. This can be while we fishing. You understand? Person could be fishing. He starts throwing out, hey, let's go over this metin real fast. Save from memory. Hey, you see if I make a mistake? I have the metin in my pocket, grab it, or the app on the phone, look, you know what I mean? Whatever the case may be. But you can do that fishing. You can do that at a barbecue. You can do that just, relaxing on whatever, on the porch or whatever. You know what I mean? Let us take advantage of our time and to be more diligent as relates to the likes of these things. And then if we have, for example, younger siblings and so on and so forth, then let us sit them down and say, listen, I'm going to go over some things. I want you to memorize it and teach them. And the Sheikh is going to teach us the methodology and how this is done, inshallah, very soon. We're going to see. Ala kullin, this is the way of the ulama, that they encourage the people to not just study, but also to memorize. Now, to memorize. Memorization is very important. Very important. وَعِنْدَمَا يُقَالُ لَهُ, and that the Shaykh, verily, he mentions unto them that what? إِنَّ الْقَدْرَ الَّذِي تَحْتَاجُ إِلَيْهِ هُوَ هَذَا الْقَدْرِ مِنَ السُّوَرِ, and that what you need, the bare minimum, what you need, right? Then it is this from these particular verses. The bare minimum, what you need, it is this from these particular verses, and that is chapters, and that is from min zalzala ila nas, from zalzala to nas. Shaykh Abdul Razak, he says, فيشعر أن القدر الذي يحتاج لإقامة عبادته هو هذا القدر اليسير. He says, so a person, he will pick up on that the portion in which he needs to establish his worship, then it is this portion which is easy. It's light. It's not hard at all. It's very light. The Shaykh, he says, فَتَعْظُمُ عِنَايَتَهُ بِهَذِهِ السُّوَرِ. So therefore, he will increase his concern for these chapters. He will increase his concern from these chapters. Min hayth, from the standpoint of what? Al-hifth, from memorizing. Naam, from memorizing. Wa min hayth al-fahm lima'aniha, and from the standpoint of knowing the meanings. Naam, because again, al-hifth, this is a means. Memorizing, and I want you to, everyone to write this in their notes. Memorization is a means to understanding. Memorization is a means to understanding. And what's the goal? The goal is what? Implementation. The goal is implementation. So we memorize as a means to what? To understand. And we memorize and understand so that we may what? Implement and do. So that we may implement and do. We may act upon it. So this gives us a target. Because as we know, the ilm is vast. The ilm is vast. It's bahr. It's like a vast ocean. So we need direction. Where do we start? Where do we start with our focus of concern? Where do we start? So Imam bin Baz, as relates to the chapters to memorize and to study their meanings and so on and so forth, is what? Are these chapters. Surah Al-Fatiha, and then from Surah Al-Zalzala to Nas. Naam. And then from Surah Al-Zalzala to Nas. The Shaykh, he says, حتى تكون تلاوته لهذه السور عن فهم لمعانيها ودراية لمدلولها أو بمدلولها. He said to the point where, or so that the recitation of these chapters could be upon understanding of their meanings and upon study of what they point to. And upon study of what they point to. And study of what's contained therein. ولهذا لو أنه خصص في المساجد حلقا للعوام المسلمين يقتصر فيها على هذه الصور ومن أكملها يقال له أكملت ما تحتاج إليه. And this is something that I want everybody, those that are here, those who are listening via Mixler, those who are listening later via whatever medium that may be, I want you to really think about this and put some consideration into this. Now, and that is that the Shaykh, he mentions, he says, and from this standpoint, even if there were classes that were specified classes inside of the Masjid, or inside of the Masjid, that there were specified classes and circles of learning that were geared to teaching the common Muslims, even if they were just restricted, or just restricted to these chapters, just teaching these chapters. So when they come, it's advertised and understood that these chapters are just so that the people coming will memorize from Surah Az-Zalzala to Nas while going over the explanation, by going over the tafsir. Now, by going over the tafsir. And that's it. That's all we're going to accomplish in this class. That is our focus for these circles of knowledge. Now, this is an effort that I want everyone to seriously think about establishing inside of their various communities. Now, establishing inside of their various communities. And of course, for those who have memorized these chapters, who can recite them correctly, and then convey that to others. Convey that to others. And as far as the tafsir of it goes, to just read from the translation of the summarized tafsir of Ibn Kathir. Just read from the translation. That's it. You don't have to add any commentary to it. You don't have to add any points. Just read from the translation. And then you can test the students based upon their reading comprehension, just based on what's there. It doesn't have to be all fancy, no bells and whistles, just from that standpoint. Ma'am. And this is something that will increase the education level, and it will increase and it will enrich the Muslim communities across the board. Across the board. And it's something that is attainable, is very easily attainable. Okay? Also, as an idea for the sisters as well, not only to establish these classes for the girls inside of the Masjid, right, and the Marakis, but also amongst themselves. Inside of the homes, maybe the sisters, sisters they gather for different things, luncheons and, whatever, beauty days and all that type of stuff. They do their thing, whatever. But what about getting together to just go over these chapters? Make sure everyone memorize them good, go read from the tafsir, so on and so forth. This is also something that is excellent. It's excellent. Naam, it's excellent. And then, after the study session is over, then you have time to socialize and do, the things that you do. No problem. But let's add some of this, to our get-togethers, inshallah ta'ala. The Shaykh, he says, because if we were to do this, and then a person, they were to complete it, they were to complete the session, he says, then it could be said to him, verily you have completed what you need. You have completed what you need. فَإِذَا أَرَدْتَ الزِّيَادَةَ نعم. And if you want more, than this, if you want more than this, التحق بحلقات التي يحفظ فيها القرآن كاملا. Because a person, he may do the same, he may want more. So then we say to him, listen, if you want more, then go to those circles where the whole Qur'an is memorized. Because see, this may get a person going. He may want more. It may not, he may finish and say, I want more. Okay, now you get him going, alhamdulillah. Now you get her going, alhamdulillah. Say, I want more. But then, and this is an important point too about knowing our level, knowing our scope. Now that they want more, okay, we know we can't give them more. So he said, okay, now you want more? Go to those places, go to those levels, go to those circles of Ahl Sunnah that you can memorize the whole Qur'an there and memorize the whole Qur'an there. Now that you get going, okay, this, for this class, that's all our purpose was to do what we did. Now that you want more, then go to those places where Ahl Sunnah is teaching, where you can get more. This will be an encouragement. This will be an encouragement, The Shaykh, he says, وَرُبَّمَا أَتْقَنَ بَعْضُهُمْ فِي الشَّهْرِ. He said that this particular, from Zalzala to Nas, he said it is possible that some of them, meaning some of the students, they may complete it in 1 month. Maybe 1 month. They do it, they memorize it all and go through the explanation, go through the tafsir. Maybe just 1 month. He said, وَرُبَّمَا فِي الشَّهْرَيْنِ, maybe in 2 months. The Shaykh says, بِحَسْبِ مَقْدِرَتِهِ وَحَافِظَتِهِ. He said this will be in accordance to his level, in accordance to his strength and memory. And this was the way of the classes of old, is that it wasn't, like on a time scale, you know what I mean? That we have a set curriculum, we're going to do this week and that next week and that. No. It was based upon accomplishment. So if a person came in there and it took him a week to accomplish what was intended to be accomplished and he got it down good, then it only took him a week, no problem. If another student, it took him a month, and it took the other student a month. If it took someone else 3 months, 4 months, it took them 3 months, 4 months. The point was that they accomplished what was intended by that particular class or that particular circle of knowledge. Now, so this is also how we should have it. So we shouldn't be stressing to have all the students upon the same surah, all the students upon the same level at the same place. Is that we deal with everybody based upon their ability. This way, those who need extra help, they don't feel that they're rushed to try to keep up with the class, and then they end up not really benefiting, right? And likewise, those who are advanced, we don't slow them down so that they feel bored. This way we let everyone to go at their pace. Everyone to go at their pace. One memorize fast, alhamdulillah, he's going to finish faster. The one who memorize slower, alhamdulillah, we give them the time that they need, and they're going to finish at a pace that is good for them. Naam. And this is something that is very important, and that I encourage everyone to employ inside of their different weekend programs, inside of the Masjid, in the homes, that the mothers, they do this in the homes. A lot of the mothers, they may homeschool their children, okay? Make this part of your core curriculum for this year, to make sure that you go over this year. Bithnillahi ta'ala. Right. The Shaykh goes on, he says, فَهَذِهِ الْمَنْهَجِيَّةِ مُهِمَّةِ بحيث يستشعر العام في جلوسه أن القدر المطلوب منه ليس قدرا كبيرا. He said this is very important so that the common Muslim, he knows from these lessons that which is required from him is not a lot. It's not a lot. And this will be an encouragement to do it. Because if a person thinks that something is going to be so tumultuous and so tashless and so on and so forth, then it may discourage them from wanting to better themselves. But if it is made known to them that you can better yourself tremendously, and with just a little bit of effort that's put forward, it's an encouragement. Like, we can accomplish that. Now, I give an example. It was mentioned to me that Imam Muqbil, rahimahullah ta'ala, he will often start his students off with Qawad al-Arba'. قواعد الأربع. نعم. He often started with قواعد الأربع. So I asked, why would he start with قواعد الأربع and not ثلاثة الأصول? نعم. Why he would start with قواعد الأربع and not ثلاثة الأصول? So I was told, because قواعد الأربع is smaller. So because it's smaller, and the students, it's easy for them to finish it. It's easy for them to memorize it and to finish it. And once they have memorized it and finished it, they feel a sense of accomplishment, which encourages them to want to study more. Right? Which encourages them to want to study more. And this is why the Imam, rahimahullah ta'ala, Imam al-Wadi'i, he used to start a lot of students off with Qawa'id al-Arba', so as to build their morale, so as to encourage them. Because now that they have accomplished it, you feel good about yourself. You accomplished it, and now you have, what do you say? I don't know how to explain it, but now you feel as if, yes, you have the ability to accomplish it. Now, I know it's a word for it, but I forgot. So it's important that we look at the likes of these things, and we understand this as well. That we understand this as well, is that we're able to build people's confidence by way of good, by way of khair. Now, and if you build their confidence up, then they're going to be more willing to tackle harder things and bigger things and more things and so on and so forth. But the point is that we really have to strive in a lot of places and in a lot of situations to get this ball going. Because how many people have been Muslims for years, decades, some longer than I've been alive, and they don't know these surahs? Or they may know them, right? But if you were to ask them about the meanings that are contained therein, they don't know. They don't know. You understand? So at some point, we have to strive to change our condition. At some point, we have to start to strive to change our condition. So let this be the starting place. Let this be the starting point. That we strive to learn what are the meanings of Surah Al-Fatiha. Because, subhanAllah, the vast majority of the Muslims, 99.9% of the Muslims, know Surah Al-Fatiha. Right? Those who don't know it are learning it. So they're about to know, inshallah ta'ala. But how many of the Muslims know the meaning of Surah Al-Fatiha? What it means? They don't know. They don't know what it means. A lot of the Muslims, unfortunately, in the English-speaking world, more specifically, they don't even know what the translation is. Let alone some of the meanings that are beyond just the translation. They don't even know the translation. And that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. Right? So, I want the parents over this weekend, sit your children down. Sit your children down and to ask them, who can recite Surah Al-Fatiha and then line by line give me the translation? And then I want the parents to test themselves. Let the wife test the husband test the wife. Right? To see who can recite Surah Al-Fatiha that we have to recite in every rak'ah, and who can just recite the verse and then give the translation. It don't have to be word for word translation, but the ballpark, you know what I'm saying, right? Give the translation. Who can do that? Just a translation. I'm not talking about going to the tafsir and what we get from the ayah. No, just a translation. That's just that. How many of us can do that? And Surah Al-Fatiha is something that, subhanAllah, is something that we recite all the time. And Sheikh Salih Abdul al-Sheikh, he mentions, he said that it is blameworthy indeed that we recite something all the time and don't know what it means. He said that's blameworthy. That we recite something all the time and we don't know what it means. Someone come and say, what does that mean? You say it all the time, what does it mean? And we, subhanAllah. And then we wonder why our salah has no effect on us. إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ تَنْهَى عَنِ الْفَحْشَاءِ وَالْمُنْكَرِ. That the salah, it prevents from any evil, vile, despicable acts in sin. Person said, "Well, I pray, but he's still, very bad person, right? But he pray. You understand? But he do all kind of nasty, corrupt stuff, and he wonder why my salat not no effect on me." Well, there's a lot of reasons, but from those reasons is that a lot of times they don't understand. They don't even understand the adhkar they're reciting in the salat. They don't understand the meanings of the chapters that they are reciting inside of their prayers, and so on and so forth. If they have no contemplation inside of their prayer, then you can't expect us to believe they have khushu' inside of their salat. How is their salat going to affect them? How is it going to affect them in a good manner? How are they going to benefit from it? So also, as Sheikh Saleh Abdis Al-Sheikh, he mentions, it's not blameworthy not to know something. So that's, just because a person doesn't know something, that's not blameworthy, because we're all born ignorant. None of us is born a scholar. None of us is born knowing anything, right? We're born, we don't even know our names. We don't know how to walk, we don't know how to talk, we don't know anything. We have to learn it. So at some point, anything there is to know, we didn't know it. We was ignorant about it. So not knowing something is not blameworthy. So the Shaykh, he says, not knowing something is not by itself blameworthy. He says, however, knowing that you don't know, and then not going out and learning what you don't know, he said, well, then that's blameworthy. You understand? Not knowing is not blameworthy by itself. But if we know that we don't know something that we should know and that we need to know, us remaining ignorant about it, that's blameworthy. That's blameworthy. Now, so let us really take this time to let us begin to change. The Shaykh, he says, وَإِنَّمَا هِيَ سُورَةٌ قَلِيلَةٌ يَتَمَكَّنُ بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى مِنْ إِتْقَانِهَا فِي وَقْتٍ يَسِيرٍ. He said, but verily there are small chapters, a little bit of chapters, small amount of chapters that a person, he could learn very well with Allah's permission in a very short period of time. And the manner of which, وتكون الطريقة في تعليمها للعوام على نحو ما بين الشيخ رحمه الله تعالى، وهي عبر الخطوات أربع. He says, in the manner, the methodology of teaching the common folk, of teaching in general, then this will be, and this was explained by the Shaykh rahimahullah ta'ala, and it is by way of the four following steps. It is by way of the four following steps. Now, the first one, al-khatwa al-ula, at-talqeen, is at-talqeen. Remember talqeen? We wrote it in the beginning of the class. Now let's go back to that word. What is the meaning of talqeen? What does talqeen mean? The Shaykh, he says, it means يلقنهم الإمام أو المقرئ أو الحافظ هذه السور آية فيكرر على مسامعهم الآية الأولى مرتين ثم ثانية وهكذا. He says what talqeen means is that the imam or the reciter or the hafiz or the one who has memorized all of the Qur'an, he would recite these chapters verse by verse. He will repeat a verse for the ones that are listening, for the students, he will just recite one verse to them. Just one verse. Now, and he may recite it once, he may recite it twice, or he may recite it more than that. You know, every teacher, it will be at his discretion based upon his students. You know, some students, they may need to recite it more. Other students may not need that much. Okay? But here, and this is very important, is that at this stage, what are they doing? They're listening. The student is listening. He's listening to how the sheikh is saying it. You understand? So by way of that, at least he knows how it should sound at this stage. He doesn't know how to recite it like that yet, but at least he knows how it should sound. And that's very important. Knowing how something should sound is very important. It's very important. A lot of times in Misr, in Egypt, a lot of times, both in Qur'an, also in conversation, in ta'bir, in conversation for Arabic, yani nahwu, so on and so forth, sarf, everything. They will say, slow down. They should tell us, slow down, and listen. Right? Even in, for example, for the Qur'an, for example, slow down. So, know and learn how the verse is recited properly. This way, when you hear it and it's not recited properly, you pick up on it immediately. It's like streaks upon the blackboard. You pick up on it immediately, like, oh, that's not right. Right? Likewise, in Nahwu, right? Yani, when you slow down and you know how it should be said, when you hear it said wrong, you pick up on it, like, oh, that's wrong. Right? For example, if someone came and they say, Aina Muhammad, where's Muhammad? And he said, Huwa fi baytihi. Huwa fi baytihi. Okay, you understand? That's good. Huwa fi bayti. Like, if someone came and they said, Aina Muhammad, he said, Huwa fil bayti. Huwa fil baytihi. Automatically, oh no, that's wrong. You can't have he on there and the alif and lam. You understand? You can't have the dhamir muttasil alayh, that's connected to it there, he, and then the alif and lam too. It's either one or the other. So you can't say al baytihi, no, baytihi. Huwa fi baytihi, not fil baytihi. You know, that's wrong. Can't have them both together. They can't both be there. Another example. If you say Aina Muhammad, you say Huwa fi baytuhu. Huwa fi baytuhu. You hear that? You say, it's wrong. Can't be baytuhu. Because it comes after fi. Ism majroor, in this case, b'kasra. So it has to be fi baytihi. He. Baytihi. Not baytuhu. Not hu. Or baytuhu, but no. Tihi. Because of what? Because of fi. Harfun jar. Harfun jar. Right? So, like this, they would tell us to slow down, listen. In this way, this is what they would tell us. If you know how it should sound, then a lot of times what happens is that you will catch your own mistakes. Because you'll say it wrong, and immediately it wouldn't feel right, and you think, oh yeah, that was wrong. And then you can turn back and correct it. Right? Likewise, when it came to reciting of the Qur'an, when you know how it should sound, then you know exactly when it's not right. You know exactly when it's not right. Now, so it is very important that we learn how to listen, and we listen to see, so we know how it sounds correctly. Now, so the Shaykh, he goes on and he says, for the Qur'an, so the Qur'an yu'khadhu bitalqeen. The Qur'an is learned by talqeen. By talqeen. So of course, a person, when you see what the meaning of the word talqeen, then you'll have a little more sympathy upon me and know why I didn't translate it. So I couldn't find a word or way to give it justice. But this is the meaning of talqeen, that you recite it correctly. that the Shaykh, he recites it correctly, or the Imam, or the Hafiz, or the Muqri, he recites it correctly, or the Talib al-Ilm, yani, he recites it correctly. فَيَسْمَعُونَهَا سَمَاعًا صَحِيحًا. So therefore, yani, they hear it correctly recited. This is the first way. The second, ثُمَّ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ يَقْرَؤُونَ مَا سَمِعُوهُ ويقوم الإمام أو المقرئ أو المحفظ بالتصحيح قراءتهم. And then after that point, then the student, he recites it, right? He strives to recite it correctly, and the teacher listens, whether that's the imam or the reciter or the one who's memorizing them these things, right? And he corrects their recitation. He corrects the recitation, because even with all that effort, this is why no matter what, you got to recite to somebody else, because even with all that effort, you're not going to catch all of your mistakes. There are going to be some mistakes that you're not going to hear from yourself, but someone else there who knows the rules and stuff like that, they will hear these mistakes from you. So it is important that we learn how to recite correctly. We learn how to recite correctly. Now, which means we have to learn the rules of tajweed so that they are applied correctly. Now, so that they are applied correctly. And that which will help us into applying them correctly is that we learn the rules of tajweed. That we learn the rules of tajweed. Okay? That's very helpful. Thirdly, ثم تأتي بعد ذلك مرحلة الثالثة. And then after that comes the third level, وهي what? الحفظ. And that is to memorize. You see, first you hear it correctly, how it should be recited correctly. Then you what? Then you recite it correctly. You're able to recite it correctly. Now that you know how it should sound, and now you know how to recite it, then at that point you what? Then you memorize it. فيحفظ هذا الذي تلقنه. So he would memorize that which he has now recited correctly. وقرأه بين يدي شيخ وصحح له حفظا صحيحا. So now he would memorize that which he has gotten well and recited correctly in front of the sheikh, and the sheikh corrected him and so on and so forth. So now this is what he's going to memorize. Now he can memorize it correctly. Now when it comes now time for you to memorize it, right? And all these things are extremely important, and they're not just as relates to the Qur'an, but these are methods, right, that go into other sciences as well, go into other disciplines as well. Hadith, fiqh, so on and so forth. Memorizing poetry, for the different sciences and so on and so forth. All of this this methodology is very, 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 very helpful. So now that you're reciting it correctly, right? You know how it should sound, you know how to recite it correctly, so on and so forth. Now when you sit to memorize it, the Shaykh, he says, وَيُقَرِّرُ حَسْبَ الْكِفَايَةِ. Then you repeat it as much as you need. You repeat it as many times as you need to repeat it. And everyone is different. Everyone is different. The Shaykh, he says, فَبَعْضُ النَّاسِ, some people, يَحْتَاجُ أَن يُكَرِّرُ السُّورَةِ 50 مَرَّةً. He says some people need to repeat a chapter 50 times. Some people need to repeat a chapter 50 times before they get it. Now, so if you do that verse by verse, meaning that what? Every verse you recite 50 times. It may take 50 times to memorize a verse. That's some people. Some people, granted, could do it in less. So some people could do it in 10 times. Some people could do it 20 times. So some people, it may take them 30 times. Some 40. Some 50. Some, listen what the Shaykh, he says. Some more than that. The Shaykh, he says, أو مئة. Some people they may have to recite it 100 times. They may have to recite it 100 times. أو, some people may need more than that. Or the Shaykh, he says what? مئتين. Some people may have to recite it 200 times. Naam. Yani ilm, subhanAllah, ilm is heavy. Ilm is heavy. Some people, they may have to recite it 200 times. So the point is that if you recite it 50 times and you ain't get it, don't be discouraged. Don't be discouraged. One of the great imams of the past, and his name, I forget right now, but one of the great imams of the past, he said that I can't remember anything unless I recite it 50 times. That's what he said. He said, I can't remember anything unless I recite it 50 times. So that means the hadith he was trying to memorize, 50 times he recited. Right? If it was the isnad, 50 times the isnad, 50 times the matan, 50 times the verse, 50 times the paragraph from this particular book, 50 times the line of poetry. If that's what it takes, alhamdulillah, repeat it. Repeat it. And we know something of this. Maybe not now, but those of us who's just a little bit older, you see, we remember the time before, it was a speed dialing, and everybody was a contact. You see his icon, whatever, boom, you hit it. You see his name, bam, you hit it. You ain't got to memorize the numbers no more. You understand? But some of us remember before this time, a lot of these smartphones making us dumb, where you had to memorize people's numbers. And those of us from that era, somebody gave a number on the fly. How'd you memorize it? You kept repeating it. What's your number? 732. Okay, 732. What else? 727. Okay, 727. Okay, I'm not gonna say the rest of the number. But anyway, you know what I'm saying, all right? You kept repeating it. You kept repeating it until when? Until you can write it down. But in that process, you remember what? Is that you memorize the number. So now when you go, you gotta find that paper because okay, 732-207, right? But that's how it was before. So we know from that, or we remember a little taste of this, is that when you repeat stuff, then it's easy for you to memorize it when you repeat it and repeat it. So maybe if it's 200 times, alhamdulillah, whatever it takes, it's fine. لِتَكُونَ مَحْفُوظَةً عِنْدَهُ حِفْظًا مُتْقَنًا, so that what he memorized, he'll memorize good. He memorized good. Naam. Fourthly, ثُمَّ تَأْتِي بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ. Okay, after that, after you memorized it, then it's another marhala, it's another level. مرحلة الرابعة وهي الشرح لما يجب فهمه. And now is that you go over the explanation of what you have to understand from that. And so now you go over what it means. What tafsir ma'ani hadhihi suwar, and you go over the meanings of this chapter. وبيان مدلولتها, and you go over the explanation of that which it points to. بداء من سورة الفاتحة, starting from Surah Al-Fatiha, ثم من سورة الزلزلة to Nas. So starting with Surah Al-Fatiha, and then from Surah Al-Zalzala to Surah Al-Nas. إتماما للفائدة أعلق تعليقا يسيرا ببيان شيء من معاني هذه السورة التي ذكرها رحمه الله تعالى. He says, and to complete the benefit, then this is Sheikh Abdul Razak, he's saying, to complete the benefit, he said that I will give some explanatory notes, some slight and brief explanatory notes, pointing out something from the meaning of the chapters that the Sheikh rahimahullah ta'ala he mentioned. بدءا من سورة الفاتحة, starting with Surah Al-Fatiha, ثم زلزلة إلى الناس, and then from Zilzala to Nas. So he's going to start with Surah Al-Fatiha, then after Surah Al-Fatiha, he will go to Surah Zilzala, and then we'll go on and on and on and on until Surah Al-Nas. بيانا مختصرا, it will be a explanation that will be summarized, with tafsiran mujizan, and it will be a light and summarized tafsir. Naam. And then the Shaykh Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, he goes on to the first chapter in which Imam bin Baz he mentioned, and that is Surah Al-Fatiha. Surah Al-Fatiha. But bithnillahi ta'ala, we'll save that for the next week's class, insha'Allah ta'ala. فنكتفي بهذا القدر، وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، وجزاكم الله خيرا.